Let me describe two people for you. The first person drives a 3-year-old Ford Focus, lives in a semi-detached house in a suburb of Leeds, shops at Aldi, wears nothing with a visible logo on it, and has never posted a holiday photo to Instagram in his life. The second person leases a BMW on finance, lives in a rented flat in a desirable part of Manchester, orders Deliveroo 4 nights a week, and posts regularly about restaurants, holidays, and a lifestyle that looks, from the outside, genuinely enviable. Who do you think is wealthier? If you said the second person, you are making the most common and most consequential financial mistake in modern Britain. The first person has £400,000 in ISAs and pensions, no debt, and is 9 years from a comfortable retirement on his own terms. The second person has negative net worth. They owe more than they own. The Instagram looks incredible. The balance sheet does not exist. This is the central financial illusion of our time. Spending is visible. Wealth is invisible. And in a world where social media has made the visible more vivid and more constant than at any point in human history, the confusion between the appearance of wealth and actual wealth has never been more dangerous or more consequential for the financial decisions of ordinary British people. Today we are going to talk about what real wealth in the UK actually looks like, why it looks nothing like what most people assume, and why the boring, invisible, unremarkable version of building money is the only version that actually works over the long run. The first thing to understand is that the UK has more millionaires than most people realize, and most of them are completely invisible to the people around them. According to recent wealth research, the UK has approximately 2.8 million high net worth individuals, people with investable assets of £1 million or more. That is approximately 4% of the adult population. The overwhelming majority of those people do not live in the houses, drive the cars, or display the lifestyle that their wealth might suggest. They live in ordinary streets, drive ordinary cars, shop in ordinary supermarkets, and work in ordinary sounding jobs. They are the dentist who has been maxing his ISA for 22 years. They are the teacher with a defined benefit pension and a paid-off house in the north of England. They are the tradesperson who has been investing £500 a month since she was 29 and has never once financed a car. They are the millionaire next door, a concept documented in research on American millionaires in the 1990s that is just as true of British wealth today. The people who look rich are often not. The people who are rich often do not look it. This disconnect between appearance and reality has a simple explanation, and it is the same explanation that underlies almost every genuinely important financial truth. The things that build wealth and the things that signal wealth are almost exactly opposite. Buying a new car on finance signals wealth and destroys it simultaneously because you are paying money to own a depreciating asset that signals a status you have borrowed to achieve. Maximizing your ISA builds wealth and signals nothing, because a stocks and shares ISA does not come with a badge or a notification or a social media post. Nobody sees it. Nobody knows. It compounds quietly in the background, accumulating value in complete silence. The car gets noticed at the traffic lights. The ISA gets noticed 30 years later when the person who owns it does not have to work anymore. Let's talk about what the boring, invisible path to wealth actually looks like in practice in the UK in 2026, because this is the part that almost never gets covered in the way it deserves. It looks like a direct debit leaving your account on the 3rd of every month for your stocks and shares ISA. You set it up once, 3 years ago. You have not thought about it since. It is not exciting. It does not require a decision. It is £1,700 per month disappearing into a Vanguard Global Equity Index fund before you have had a chance to spend it on something else. Nobody knows it is happening. Your colleagues do not know it is happening. Your friends who are leasing better cars than you do not know it is happening. But at 7% annual growth, that direct debit is building at a rate that will produce approximately £750,000 over 20 years, entirely tax-free, inside the ISA wrapper. That is not a prediction. That is the mathematics of compound interest applied to a contribution rate that a significant number of British people on median salaries can afford if they make it a deliberate and automatic priority rather than an afterthought funded from whatever is left at the end of the month. It looks like a workplace pension that you contribute more into than you have to, not the mandatory 8% of qualifying earnings that auto-enrollment requires. 12%, 15%. Whatever you can arrange through salary sacrifice before the money reaches your current account and gets spent on things you will not remember in 10 years. Your take-home pay is lower than your colleagues who are contributing the minimum, but your pension pot is growing significantly faster. The contribution goes in before tax. Your employer may be matching a portion of it. And it compounds at the full pre-tax rate inside a pension wrapper, while sitting completely outside anyone's ability to see or admire it. Pension statements are not social currency. They are, however, the document that most determines the quality of the last third of your life. It looks like a car that is 4 or 5 years old, bought outright, maintained properly, and driven for another 6 or 7 years before being replaced. Not because you cannot afford a newer one, because the difference between what you would spend on a new car or a lease and what you actually spend gets redirected every month into assets that grow. The person who leases a £35,000 car for 5 years pays approximately £15,000 to £18,000 in interest and fees for the privilege of driving something that is never theirs and returns to the dealer with nothing to show for it. The person who drives the older car and invests the equivalent monthly saving has, after 5 years, built a meaningful addition to their investment portfolio. One person looks more successful at the traffic lights. The other person is more successful at the bank. It looks like a house that is paid off or close to it in a town or city where the price-to-income ratio made that possible, because the person who built it chose their location partly on the basis of financial sustainability rather than postcode status. The paid-off house is one of the most powerful financial structures available to a British person of any income level. It eliminates the largest single monthly expenditure. It provides security that no market fluctuation can easily remove, and it means that in retirement, income that would otherwise go to rent or mortgage goes instead to living. Over a 20 to 30-year retirement, the financial value of owning your home outright rather than renting is genuinely transformative, and it compounds year by year as rents rise around you while your housing cost stays at zero. It looks like an emergency fund of £10,000 to £15,000 sitting in a high-interest easy-access savings account, earning something close to 5%, boring and untouched, doing nothing dramatic, just sitting there being the reason you have never had to put a car repair or a broken boiler or a period of unexpected unemployment on a credit card at 22% interest. The emergency fund is the most invisible financial asset you can own. It never goes up dramatically. It never generates a headline return. It never earns you a compliment. What it does is prevent the kind of small financial crisis that, in the absence of a buffer, forces you to borrow at high interest and sets back your wealth-building trajectory by months or years each time it happens. Now let's talk about the psychological dimension of this, because the boring and invisible path to wealth is not just financially difficult for most British people. It is psychologically difficult in ways that the current culture makes genuinely hard to manage. We live in a country where the visible signals of financial success have never been more amplified. Social media has created a curated highlight reel of consumption that is available every hour of every day. The houses look better than they are. The holidays look more frequent than they were. The restaurants look more expensive than was comfortable. And the cumulative effect of watching this stream of visible consumption is a social comparison process that makes ordinary life feel inadequate and that makes the invisible, unglamorous act of contributing to an ISA feel utterly disconnected from any sense of progress or identity. Research into the psychology of wealth and happiness consistently shows that the truly wealthy have developed a high degree of what psychologists call internal validation. Their sense of financial security and identity does not depend on external signals or social approval. They know what their balance sheet looks like. They do not need anyone else to know. The people who are most driven to display the visible signals of wealth are, in many cases, the people whose actual balance sheet is least secure, because the display is doing the psychological work that genuine financial security would otherwise provide. The British cultural relationship with money adds another layer to this. Britain has a long and specific tradition of financial privacy. It is considered deeply inappropriate in most British social contexts to discuss exactly how much you earn, how much you have invested, or what your pension is worth. This cultural norm, which looks like reticence and sometimes like repression, actually serves a useful function for wealth builders. It creates a social environment where not displaying wealth is the default, where driving an ordinary car and living in a modest house is not only acceptable, but expected, and where the gap between what you have and what you show is much more easily maintained than it would be in cultures with stronger display norms. The practical implication of everything in this video is straightforward. Stop using visible consumption as a proxy for financial progress. Stop letting the lifestyle choices of people around you calibrate your sense of what you should own, drive, wear, or holiday at. Almost nothing you can see in someone else's life tells you anything accurate about their actual financial position. The lease, the holiday, the handbag, the restaurant, the car, these are outputs of spending, which is the opposite of wealth. Real wealth in Britain in 2026 is sitting in ISAs, in pension pots, in paid-off properties, in emergency funds, in quiet and completely unremarkable direct debits, leaving accounts on the same day every month, and building a future that will only become visible when it is already won. The boring path is not a lesser version of the exciting one. It is the only version that consistently works. The people who built real, lasting, financially independent lives in Britain did not do it by looking the part. They did it by ignoring the part entirely and getting on with the numbers instead. If this changed the way you see wealth and the way you see the people around you, please hit the like button and subscribe to UK Finance with Peter for more straight-talking content on money for people living and working in Britain. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.